Hi, John. Welcome to the PowerTalk Show powered by Business Talks Weekly. Thank you so much for joining our channel today. Can you tell us a bit about your professional background and what led to the creation of Fiscal Advocate?
Absolutely. I actually was in the digital marketing space from 1996 to 2020. And in 2004, I started a digital marketing agency called Rise Interactive. I grew it from just me to a little bit under 40 million in revenue with 250 employees, and then sold it at that time. And when I stepped down, I didn't know what I wanted to do next. But I had a business coach who kept on saying, the insights that you have is like nothing I've ever seen. You should create a company doing that. And so that's how Fiscal Advocate got born. And so what we now do is it's basically we take over the finance department for mainly service-based companies, mostly marketing agencies and tech service companies. And we help them with their budgeting, their forecasting, their cash flow analysis. We built software that helps you do all this. We have a philosophy and approach. And we really only focus on three numbers. How do you grow faster? So your year-over-year revenue growth, your profit margin, and your cash flow analysis, or you're growing your cash.
Well, thank you so much, John, for sharing that short intro. Before we move to Fiscal Advocate, I just want to talk a bit about Rise Interactive. I know you have sold that business, but I want to understand, how was your journey from 0 to 10 to 100? Why did you sell?
Sure. So my original exit strategy for Rise was I was going to die one day. As far as I was concerned, I was going to do this until, for eternity. But at that moment in time, I was single and, it was worth zero at the time when I first started it. But over time, it became 99.9% of my wealth. So everything was tied up in this one company. And I was married, I had children. And so diversification became much more important to me. And so that was a big impetus. The second big reason I sold was every year, right around July or August, I would start developing the strategy for the next year. And I called it the first business day of the year. I call it game day. Like the game has officially started for the year. And I was always excited for game day. And when I was 19, when I started developing the strategy for the next year, I knew it would be a great year. Like I knew we would have a phenomenal year. I just wasn't excited. It felt like the same playbook that I already did. And it wasn't something new. And, so I felt like it was time. And so, there was a third reason where there were some personal things going on where I had to spend a little bit more time with my family. And so those were the three main reasons that I decided to sell.
That's very interesting, John, because I think as a founder, it is very important for a founder to understand and know when to exit, when to actually leave your hands off your thing. John, coming to Fiscal Advocate, you are helping different founders from different industry verticals. What challenges do you see are the founders facing when it comes to finances, and how are you helping them address these challenges?
The majority of the people who come to me have had a period of growth, and all of a sudden the growth has stopped. And let's just say they get to 20 million in revenue, and all of a sudden they can't get past 20 million in revenue, and they don't know why. The secret oftentimes lies in their financial numbers. I can look at someone's income statement and almost tell them exactly why they're not growing and what they need to do to put themselves back on a path to growth. And so that's when people generally get involved with us is they want to grow faster. They don't know why they're not growing faster, and they need help and guidance to get there.
And John, if you can share with us and our audience, what are some of the key metrics or KPIs should founder look in terms of financial aspect? What are the key KPIs?
Yep. So my expertise is basically service-based companies. So people who sell their time, such as marketing agencies, tech service companies, law firms, architects, engineers. But what I'm about to share, I think applies to every single business. So the first thing is you need to know what your gross margin is. And I'm going to explain what that is in a second. And you need to become obsessed with improving it. So in the world of the service industry, your gross margin is how much money do you have left over after paying all of your employees, all of your freelancers, all of your technology to service your customers. And so if you have 10 million in revenue and it costs you 7 million in time and money and expenses to service your customers, you have 3 million left over, or a 30% gross margin, 3 divided by 10 million. And the key to the entire success is you want your gross margin to be between 50 and 60%. If you are less than 40%, you're most likely losing money. If you're between 40 and 50%, you're generally trying to decide, do I invest in my business or am I profitable? If you're above 60%, you're moving into software gross margin. And so there's a chance that you're either under delivering or you're burning out your employees. And so that 50 to 60% number is really the sweet spot. And if you can have a really high gross margin, it gives you more money to invest in your business. So let me just give you an example. Imagine two companies, both are 10 million in revenue, both do the exact same thing, and one has a 50% gross margin and the other one has a 30% gross margin. Well, that means the 50% gross margin has $5 million to either put in their pocket or invest in the business, where the company that's 10 million with a 30% gross margin only has $3 million to put in their pocket or to invest back in the business. Then you get into your non-client related expenses. There's only three: sales and marketing, your back office, which I call operations and finance, and your executive team. So the second KPI that I really believe is important is what percent of your revenue do you spend on sales and marketing? So just those two numbers, if you can improve your gross margin and increase the percent of revenue you spend on sales and marketing, you're on a path to success and growth. A lot of people used to come to me, competitors of mine or smaller marketing agencies, when I ran Rise, and they're like, how are you growing so fast? And I was like, well, we have probably the highest percentage of sales and marketing out of our revenue versus anybody else in the industry. And I was like, how much do you spend on sales and marketing as a percent of revenue? And the answer I got was almost without fail, it's like, oh, we don't spend any on sales and marketing. It's all word of mouth. And, you know, if you want to grow faster and that's your goal, well, it's not a goal unless you budget against it and you got to put money there. And my response was always, how come I'm the only marketer that actually believes in marketing? Because all these people own marketing agencies, but they don't put any money into their own marketing. The third KPI, which I generally treat as a balance sheet item, is what percent of your revenue do you spend on innovation? All my clients in this current business and in my last business are MRR. So they're giving me monthly recurring revenue. And my number one sales goal is never lose a customer due to performance. So if you spend all this time and money to win a customer and you can hold on to them, well, then what I want to do is basically spend money on innovation so that my company on December 31st is better than it was on January 1st, meaning that the services that we offer are better. And the way you do that is you got to reduce churn and you got to invest in innovation. So that's the third KPI that I believe is really important.
That's very interesting, and thank you so much for sharing that with us, John. And as you mentioned about gross margin, and there are so many platforms currently, especially in the AI space and LLM models. Do you think these platforms will help decrease the operating costs and increase the gross margin, or would it be the opposite?
I think it absolutely will. But once again, right now, AI is a tool, just like Microsoft Excel is a tool. But in order to leverage that tool, you need people who are dedicated to identifying all the platforms that exist. You might need a technology team with an agile framework to, do releases every 2 weeks to make your service, and product better. So it's really, how do you use AI to give you that margin advantage? Now, I'll give you an example. My gross margin when I left Rise was 57%. So right at the high end of that 50 to 60% range that I talked about. The main goal we were focusing on was automating a lot of our manual tasks. So for example, we might spend 1,000 hours a month on our social media reporting. Well, how could we automate those reports so that we didn't have to have humans create those reports, but at the same time, going back to making your product better, it reduced errors. Humans putting reports together, just, it's boring, it's rote, you're doing it over and over and over again. It's prone to have somebody make a mistake. But if you pull all the information from all the different social media sources and put it automatically in the platform, the product became better for our customers, and it increased our gross margin at the same time.
Absolutely. Makes sense. And John, you also mentioned something about churn and attrition. Like how can you hold on to your existing client? What are the ways that you can actually decrease your churn?
Okay, so first, I'm going to give you a mission that anybody can steal, but it's basically deliver remarkable experiences and superior results for your clients. And when you think of the experience, it could be your response time. It could be how nice you are to work with. It could be your attention to detail. It could be surprising and delight. There's all sorts of things that you can do to make the experience better. And then the results, it all depends on what you're being hired to do. In our case, as a digital marketer, mainly our goal was to help people get leads at higher volume at a lower cost. So going back to my comment, it can't be a goal unless you budget against it. If your goal is to improve experiences and improve results, which in my opinion, in terms of keeping customers, those are the only two things that matter. You need a budget of how are you going to, improve the experience and how are you going to improve the results. And, I believe Jeff Bezos, who's very known for being customer obsessed with Amazon, he had a certain comment that there were certain attributes that no customer would ever be upset about. No customer is ever going to be upset that their package got to their door faster. No customer is ever going to be upset that the pricing of the product was lower. And so when you think about your business, what are those things? Like I believe in radical responsiveness. And so at Rise and at Fiscal Advocate, you need to get back to a customer within 30 minutes or less. And I don't care if the answer is, it's going to take me a couple days to do the research on this. I just want them to acknowledge that we got the email or the phone call or the text message or the Slack message and that we're on top of it and they can sleep at night knowing that we're going to take care of it. But to improve responsiveness, there's a million different ideas you could have of how can you do responsiveness faster. And so you got a budget with dedicated team members to make those things faster and better.
Absolutely. Being responsive and always being available to your clients. John, what's next for you? For Fiscal Advocate, what is the vision in the next 3-5 years?
So a couple things. Our main goal is to help service-based companies, typically between 10 million and 100 million in revenue, improve 3 KPIs. We want them to grow year over year, faster their revenue, we want to increase their profit margin, and we want to increase their cash. So that's like our guiding principle. Within the next 60 days or less, we are coming up with an AI CFO. And so this is taking all of my thought leadership. It will be connecting to all of your financial information, and you will be able to ask any question, any time of day, and get immediate responses. So, imagine you're up at 1 a.m. and you want to know, what is my client churn? Because it's connected to all your data sources, you'll be able to know that information immediately.
Wow, that sounds very interesting. John, one final question before we let you go.
Yeah.
You have built and sold a business and you're building a new business as well. What has been your biggest lesson so far?
I think my biggest lesson so far is love the customer. If you think about no matter who you are, you have a product or a service that you sell, and there's customers that you need to take care of. And if you care more about the customer than the solution you're selling and making sure that you are always doing right by that customer, you're going to build a great business. And I would say the second thing is don't worry about the exit. Just build a great business. If you build a great business that takes care of customers, the exit will take care of itself when it's time to take care of itself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, John, for sharing that
Yep.
with us, for giving us time. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much.
So wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me.